Welcome to the 12th episode in Speaking of Poetry. I'm Rennie McQuilkin, publisher of Antrim House Books, whose authors are featured in this series. Today I am delighted to be joined by Marye Gail Harrison. Currently living at Seabury Retirement Community, Marye Gail lived with her husband John for over 20 years in West Simsbury. She has had many lives as a mother, a writer, a social worker, a Unitarian church leader, a corporate officer in financial services, and a spiritual director. It is difficult to define her. Just when definition seems possible, Marye Gail goes off on a new adventure. As a latter-day Druid, she is fascinated by the spiritual dimensions of life. That fascination has spilled over into her current project, a series of paintings and writings based on Hubble telescope images of the universe. Welcome, Marye Gail.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this afternoon and share my first book of poetry and the sketches that are in it. You've said that I'm basically a storyteller, and I'm here to tell summer stories primarily throughout my life, starting when I was little and ending with my 70th year. These are poems of gratitude for my life. The first poem takes place in Maryland, where I was raised, and I was about 3 years old when this happened. I know it's time. Light winks at me from the leaves by the small wooden bridge. My little brown sandals make a funny sound as I run over it. Below me, water talks, but I don't know what it says, and I keep running. I am surprised when Mommy comes up behind me and asks breathlessly, "Where are you going?" "Meet Daddy," I say. I know this is the way we go to meet him at the bus after work. He will say, "How's my redhead?" and scoop me into his arms. Maybe he will let me play with his black lunchbox if I am careful to take out the empty thermos bottle. I know it's time to go find him. What inner clock tells a 3-year-old? Knowing, I run to him, alone, not fearing, sure of the path as well as the time. I would run to the bridge now, if only I could find the way. Every summer, my family went back home. We were all born in Tennessee. My parents were raised there. The trip was timed for the summer. Particularly, I learned when the ripe tomatoes would be in. This poem is my memories of those trips back. Taste of Tennessee summers. I can almost step out the low upstairs window when I wake up, smelling smoky, tobacco-fired morning as roosters crow out past the red hollyhocks. My cousin makes me buttery fried toast with chewy blackberry jam, salty bacon with hard rind, and canned grapefruit juice. By noon, the windows are closed, shades on the sunny sides. Only the porch swing is cool. I hide in the dark pantry where the light chain's too high. We eat pink country-cured ham on fluffy biscuits made with lard. I like fried bologna or pimento cheese salad on white bread, sweet tea. Before supper, washing up in the pan with water from the pail filled at the pump, I sip from the dipper like everybody else. There's crispy fried chicken pulley bone if I pick before Uncle Nathan. Creamy whipped potatoes, fat butter beans with summer ripe tomatoes, fried corn with scorched bits from the iron skillet bottom. Have another hot one, rolls and biscuits right from the oven, and warm, fresh peach cobbler bubbled over the crust. Y'all get enough to eat? After dark on the porch, all the chairs rocking, glider swaying, swing chains clinking, lightning bugs blinking, adults laughing low, telling stories, till someone gently guides me up to the slightly musty attic guest bed. Sweet dreams, sugar. Well, I grew up and went to college, and the day after I got married, the day after I graduated, and after a while I had two wonderful boys. This poem tells about those early summer months with those babies and some of what happened to us afterwards. A mother's gift. I nursed each of my sons 6 months. I can still see the first one's bright eyes looking up at me, never breaking contact, as I lifted the nipple of my full moon breast into his soft, wet mouth. Later, in the heat of those close moments, the younger one's eyes would close while sweat swelled on his temples and lips, mouth automatically sucking as he dropped off to sleep in my arms. Later, having lost myself, I left them with their father. As they found themselves, they went their own ways. I wish I could give them something now that would nourish us all again. A good many years later, my older son had gone to school in California and stayed out there afterwards. And things were a little tough between us, and I went out to spend a little time with him. He took me out to Point Reyes Lighthouse north of San Francisco where he lived. And on the way, he really let me have it with all the pain that he had been experiencing for a number of years. On that special day, this experience was my trying to resolve all of that for both of us. Point Reyes Light. 350 is the number on the step at the top of the cliff, the steps curving down to the restored lighthouse, a little over 10 for each of your 30 years and almost 6 of each of my 60, plunging down to the Pacific with only rails, wire fencing, and better judgment to contain us. In the late afternoon sun, bright reflection turns the water dark, impenetrable. Behind us, grasshopper-colored meadows roll away, treeless, to isolated farms. To the south, like a tropical mirage, translucent aqua unites the amber cliffs and cerulean sky. We go down together after our long ride, when I truly listened to your long-pent feelings. Knowing how precious every moment is with you, I keep my worries to myself. I have this one day with you, my firstborn son, yet in the lighthouse, something pulls me away from the guide's stories. I say I need to start back and for you to come when you are ready. After the first 100 steps, I rest on a bench. I breathe hard, thinking how you told me today how angry you are with me, how I failed you when I left you at 10 with your father and too much responsibility. I climb on to where the sun's brilliance blinds me and stop at step 200. Directly below, waves crash on rocks. Constant churning, my gut recognizes. I hear you say you felt at 12, you had no real mother, that after my new marriage, my home no longer felt like safe harbor for you. Climbing again, I know at step 300 I will make it, but I stop in no hurry now, surrounded by the rusty rock faces of the cliff, marveling at the little gardens clinging in the cracks, but recalling the grimace that scarred your face as you said I was oblivious to your daily humiliation in high school, an honor student in AP classes, anguished behind the mask of your long blonde hair. I slow my pace and take the last 50 steps more easily. Looking back, I see you have not started up yet. On the top, I lean on the rail to the south, feeling the nurturing hot sun and cool breeze. I search my own horizon for understanding, for peace. I hold your story as I once held you in my womb, a living part of me, ready, I trust, to birth itself in its own time. Alone there, I see her far below me, a long oval just under the surface, living gem in aqua setting, her powerful body guarding her calf from the open sea. As they slowly glide past, joy sprays me like mist from their blowholes, and then they are gone. The cold, sad shadow of your missing them passes over. Then great love widens me as I embrace both joy and grief. When you join me on the edge, I describe the whales, and we watch 7 seals undulate past. I so wish I had shielded you longer from life's open waters, so you could play more like those seals. Immersed now in deeper waters, we are at last ready to move on. And I'm happy to report that my son and I have managed to continue to improve our relationship since that day. In my second marriage, which I've already mentioned in the poems, I married a man older than I am. And unfortunately, in the last few years, he's had 2 strokes and is experiencing a progressive dementia. There is much that I long for in life, experiencing this through him. And I'm going to read 3 poems here together, 2 directly about him, and 1 a spring song to introduce this longing for more of life. Spring song. In the warm sun of a cool March day, a small gray bird calls out over and over, calls out sitting on a maple branch, bulging with spring flower buds from across the way. Each time the call is answered over and over. And in the tall blue spruce on a platform of branches near the trunk, the mourning dove lowers her head and drops her wings to her side. She lifts her rump as high as she can, quivering with the strain of it, tail straight up like an exclamation point. The male slips from branch to branch, closer, closer. He sniffs her ovarian sweetness. Each pecks the other's bobbing head. I too call out over and over, often in the warm sun on a cool spring day, to something across the way. I too lift myself up, straining inwardly, and whisper to the day, "Come to me, come to me." This next poem is my husband's favorite. Come in from the rain. Come in from the rain to the warmth of my arms, he said. I will talk to you with my hands, and you can listen with your body. Years later, after his stroke, he still spoke to me. Years later, I could still hear him in the silence of his touch. Another recent summer poem setting is a summer day at a vacation cottage. Older love. Our bodies savor touching, bare skin to bare skin. It's been a long time. And what I feel is not the old passion. Something sweeter, wiser, sadder, gentler fills me. Our touching glides past angry, hurtful years, caresses the losses of early dementia, kisses away the pain of not living together. On a summer day at the vacation cottage, gratitude for what we have left shimmers in the sunlight streaming onto the bed. On the way back, we stop for an Italian dinner, sharing a glass of wine to toast our love, ever evolving. This book of poetry also contains a number of sketches. Several years ago, I started carrying around a small sketchbook, a pen, and sometimes a box of watercolors, a small box of watercolors and a tiny bottle of water. And so I began capturing some of my favorite things. One of the sketches in this book that is a particular favorite is of the fountain in Simsbury that's across from Abigail's. That overflowing fountain is the symbol of the way I want to lead my life. This poem is a mix of my love of science and an experience on the Farmington River in those inner tube rafts that you ride. Into the flow. Some scientists say the heart is not a pump, and the blood knows how to move itself, only regulated by the heart. If so, then maybe I also know when to move. Maybe I feel summer's impulses, signaling squirrels mating, cardinals singing, daisies blooming, maples leafing, grass greening, streams rushing. Into this flow I go, knowing my way to the larger confluence, moving with it as though floating on a big inner tube platelet in the life stream river, buoyed by knowing, gurgling and babbling messages, telling of the irises, butterflies, and deer, as well as the chute, the vortex, the pool. And my heart regulates my going on, downstream to the sea. Shifting to winter and the beautiful meadow by Ethel Walker School where the horses often graze. This poem is Long Blue Shadows. As I drove past the hilly pasture land, I saw clearly the long blue shadows on the snowy, unscarred hillside cast by the sun from the spire of the cedar and the bare branches of the maple. Light of understanding, cast forward the long blue shadow of my life that I might see it clearly before me on the bare white expanse of this moment. These last two poems are about my aging and how I've tried to cope with that. I was having trouble breathing, trudging up the wet, stony mountain path, postmenopausal, out of shape, everything harder now. I remember how my one-breasted, one-lunged friend taught me to breathe like mountain climbers at high altitudes. Focus on the exhale, force the air out, blow noisily through your lips. Tie it to your steps, the rhythm makes it easy. Wounded many ways, we find ourselves seeking higher altitudes. The air is thin, the way is steep, our body's not in shape for it, yet here we are, drawn irresistibly upward. Walking alone now or with old friends who won't think our noisy breathing and our strange pacing are embarrassing, we celebrate just being on the path. Wounded, set aside, we find our own reasons to go up the trail. Wounded ones, we teach each other to keep on climbing. As we hike up the days of our lives, release, exhale, expel, let go. What we need to take in will come on its own with little effort. Left step, right step, left step, right step, climbing to the top for the view, hoping to see at least 7 shades of blue. And now to my cosmic birthday, my 70th, about a year ago in August. Cosmic birthday. The battery-operated bubble machine ran wild all day in the yard. The kite was hung ornamentally from low tree branches, its long, colorful streamers dancing in the breeze, welcoming the afternoon guests. Banners of planets and stars flapped from the deck, beckoning the partygoers to sit in outer space. It was her 70th birthday. She, her kids, grandkids, and close friends all wanted to party. Here's your last big decade. Better go for it while you can. They liked bossing her out of the kitchen as they prepared large bowls of fruit and salads. She was left alone, in her party clothes, all dressed up and no place to go, remembering the funny birthdays she'd once planned for them. Everyone wore crazy headgear, frog and crab, monkey and pirate hats, hiking hats adorned with Hawaiian lace or weird buttons, and one lavender wig. An artist friend painted embellished eyebrows, beautiful and alien, on almost everyone. The birthday dessert was cosmic chocolate cupcakes with chocolate, ice cream, whipped cream, and nuts, all based on the proper proportions of dark matter and energy and visible atoms in the universe. She told them 10% of their body weight was 13.8 billion year-old hydrogen created at the Big Bang. That made her feel both wise and young. Before singing happy birthday and making wishes for her, as they blew out the candles on their cosmic cakes, they read a poem together, "Out of the stars have we come." She dressed up as Madame Supernova and told fortunes for those brave enough to face their futures, tapping her black plastic fingernail left over from Halloween on the charms laid out for them to contemplate. Near the end, they turned tables on their mother, used her old party gags against her to lead her laughing on a merry goose chase with flashlights to find a stash of presents, which showed her they had really understood renewal of her interest in art. After most went home, the real stars came out on night's banner, and the crickets took up the field to play. Her daughter got out her more serious magic, stroked and rang her set of brass Tibetan bowls, filling the soft summer air with ancient vibrations of spheres. She checked their chakras with a pendulum. Everyone was perfectly balanced. their faces aglow with cosmic light.
Thank you, Marye Gail.
Welcome, Rennie.
In one of your poems, you say to your son that you wish that you could give him something to nourish him and all of us, and I believe that's what you've done today.
Thank you.
You've given us not just peach cobbler bubbling over the crust, but you've given us nourishment for the soul and
Thank you.
the memory and all that we so desperately need
Thank you.
to stay alive.
Thank you.
I want to thank also Ken Picard and Karen Handville, who make this program possible, and to say to you that if you would like to learn more about Marye Gail Harrison and read samples of her work, please visit the Antrim House website, antrimhousebooks.com. You may also be interested in other Antrim House poets whose lives and works are described on the website. For now, goodbye until we meet again next month for the 13th installment of Speaking of Poetry.